I'm turning every SILKSONG enemy into a Pokémon. Up until now, we managed to create 43 designs, so if you haven't seen the previous videos yet, be sure to check them out after this one. Today, you will be seeing 8 more designs, these being based on the old harts, the final bosses of the game, as well as the fossil Pokémon of the region, as suggested by some of you. In the first video of the series, I created a line based on the scars, a 3-stage line starting with the Scarlet, continuing with the Scar Scout, and finally finishing with the Scar Guard. One of you, Tukisian, all the way from Costa Rica, even created some awesome pixel art of Sepulant and Tibiant. Anyway, a lot of you suggested for it to have a split evolution where if the Pokemon is female, it will evolve into Carmelita. I decided to make it quite rare, so the chance for a female is only 5%, as there is only room for one queen. However, in exchange for this rarity, this also means it's more powerful. In its design, I wanted it to look like an elegant yet fierce warrior. One of my main challenges was making it wear a dress. It can be quite hard to implement clothes on Pokemon without it look weird, so I decided that the dress is a bunch of dry leaves that it wears, as ants often carry leaves to their colony. At level 40, if Tibiant is female, it will evolve into our Melody, a bug and fighting type Pokemon. In this colony of ant Pokemon, there is only room for one queen. If by any chance another Melody appears, they will fight to the death, as these Pokemon only follow the strongest. It commands its army with a beautiful singing voice, attacking both gracefully like if it were dancing, as well as singing to enchant its opponents. For its abilities, its male counterpart had Battle Armor, Guts and Moxie. While I believe that Battle Armor still fits this Pokemon due to its exoskeleton, I feel like Guts and Moxie work more for Pokemon who rely on brute force. In the case of this Pokemon, it's much more dexterous and fast, so I think that Technician fits better. It also learns the move Boomerang, so it will greatly affect the damage of this move. As for its hidden ability, I went with Queenly Majesty, a very fitting name for this Pokemon and a move that makes it immune to priority attacks, something quite useful for a fast and frail Pokemon like this one. As for its stats, while Barbariant was a colossal brute with high attack and defense, this Pokemon is a fast attacker. I wanted to implement its singing in its moveset and stats, so I decided to make it a mixed attacker so they can also use sound-based moves such as Bug Buzz or Hyper Balls, making this Pokemon a very versatile threat, so you won't know what to expect from it. The next one is based on Nath, another one suggested by many of you. Some even suggested for it to be a grass starter, but in the end I decided to not have regular starters, just a Weeby that you can get at the start of the game. For its first stage, I based it on the Fascia, an enemy you can find quite early in the game in Sherwood, that shoots out spores to attack you. It's quite a simple design. I wanted it to look like a cute creature that's popping out of its flower. Meet Petalin, a grass type Pokemon. It mostly drifts in the air, carried by the wind. It constantly shoots out spores that help the forest grow. While it's very friendly, if it gets scared, it would suddenly burst out a huge amount of pollen that can be quite harmful. Next, we have its middle stage, based on the Gallia. It often hides in its flower and pops out when you get close, so for this design, I wanted to showcase it in a more playful pose, instead of the rigid pose it has in the game. At level 20, Petalin will evolve into Petalisk, the Gallia Pokemon. It normally hides inside a flower stuck on the walls of high cliffs in order to blend with the environment. It's not a very aggressive Pokemon, but if you get too close, it will quickly pop out of its flower and push you off. So it can become a bit of a burden for Pokemon or people who just so happen to be climbing and didn't realize this Pokemon was there. For its abilities, I went with Flower Veil, as Nath is like some kind of protector of Sherwood, so an ability that protects its grass type allies is very fitting. I also gave it Natural Cure, quite common with grass type Pokemon, and for its hidden ability, I went with Grassy Surge, representing how Nath gave life to the vegetation around her. It's also a very handy ability as I'm planning on making it quite bulky. And for its final evolution, of course we have Nath herself. Some might be surprised by the direction they went with, as I ended up making it some kind of sauropod, similar to Meganium. The idea came while I was sketching it. I started with its head and neck, and when I started to give it a body, I made the roots that Nath has work as legs on this design, and it just ended up looking like a sauropod. So I decided to push the design even further and gave it a tail with spikes, representing the spiky vines that are found in the arena where you fight her. When in contact with a leaf stone, Petalisk will evolve into Nymflora, a grass and fairy type Pokémon. It's a very caring Pokémon. Many weaker Pokémon gather around it for protection. However, nowadays, due to the rise in contamination, it's quite rare to see this Pokémon, as it prefers to hide at the deepest parts of the forest. Stat-wise, I made it quite slow with a high special defense and special attack, so the previously mentioned Grassy Surge ability will be very helpful, as it will enhance its grass type attacks as well as giving it more survivability thanks to recovering HP from the terrain. Hi everyone, just a reminder that if you want to help support the channel, you can become a member. By doing so, you can get some awesome perks like getting some PNGs of the Pokemon we do in this channel. This month we have the Bell Beast line, the Crawls, and the Fleas. So if you're interested, be sure to check the different membership plans. Right, and for the final heart of the day, we have Crust King Kang. Of course, many of you really wanted me to do this, and some of you even wanted it to be a fossil of the region. Makes sense, as you find its dry body in sands of Karak. Its first stage is based on the Crust Crawler. I decided to base the line on crabs, as I imagine the name Crust from Crust King comes from crustacean. And this enemy kinda looks like a crab walking sideways. When reviving the coral fossil, you will obtain Crust-Tide, a water and rock type Pokemon. Its body naturally grows hard corals on its back, which serve as protection. They also serve as a natural cleaner of the ocean, as they filter all impurities. However, with time, they went extinct as the oceans became too contaminated and it couldn't keep up. For its abilities, I went with Solid Rock, as it's quite common with tanky rock types. So it will be quite helpful when it receives super effective grass attacks. And in case you want to go more on the offense for this Pokemon, you have Sheer Force as its hidden ability, boosting the damage of attacks with a secondary effect. Next, we have its evolution, based on Crust King Kang itself. I gave myself some liberty when it comes to the colours. While they aren't exactly like the ones from the boss, I felt like it needed to be quite colourful, as it has corals all over its body. The Coral Tower is probably one of the most beautiful places in the game, so its colours fit this environment quite well. And for its white mask, it actually fits really well. You see, when coral dies, it loses all of its colour, becoming white. So in the case of this Pokemon, when you revive it, you can see that the coral on its face has already lost its colour, showcasing how it was already starting to go extinct. At level 35, Crust-Tide will evolve into Coralith. This Pokemon was once the king of the ocean, constantly competing with Kabutops. The colourful corals on its body serve both as protection for itself as well as the environment it lives in, as it cleans all the impurities of the ocean. However, this comes at a cost, as this will detriment its body, and the corals on its body will eventually lose all of its colour and fade to white, resulting in its demise, a dignifying death for who was once considered the king of the ocean, sacrificing itself for its people. Of course, if you look at its shiny, you can probably realise that it's a reference to the Watcher of the Edge. For its stats, it has a high defense and attack. It's not very fast, but imagine this Pokemon learning Shell Smash, so it can become quite the threat. You could even equip it with a weakness policy where it has the Solid Rock ability in order to become an absolute monster. Of course, most fossils come in a pair: Kabuto and Ammonite, Anorith and Lilip, and this is no exception. We have another fossil based on a boss that you can find in the past, the Pale Stag. You can find it in Verdania, and there's also a common enemy called the Clover Stag. I looked at extinct stags, and there's one called the Irish Elk, a massive deer that went extinct about 12,000 years ago. Very fitting considering that the boss is also based on clovers. I wonder if that was on purpose by Team Cherry. When you revive the Clover fossil, you will obtain a Shamthorn, a grass and rock type Pokemon. Many believe that this Pokemon brings good luck, so many went out on expeditions in order to find the remains to revive them and obtain one. However, this must be just a rumour. If it was really that lucky, why did it become extinct? For its abilities, I went with Super Luck, as it's based on 4-leaf clovers, which are believed to bring good luck, and Serene Grace, which doubles the chances of a secondary effect to be triggered from a move. Just imagine this Pokemon using Ancient Power and getting that all stat boost. And for the final design of the day, we have its evolution, the Pale Stag. I wanted to make it look very graceful. At one point, I was even going to make it walk in the air, similar to the deer boss in Elden Ring, but then I realised this boss doesn't do that, just misremembered, so ended up making it walk on land like normal. At level 35, Shamthorn will evolve into Clovidin, the Pale Stag Pokémon. It's believed that in the past it used to be a more reckless Pokémon. However, it somehow seems to be aware of its own extinction, making it much more aware of its surroundings, and opting for a much more careful approach when it comes to combat, keeping its distance and teleporting away if the enemy gets close. As for its stats, I wasn't too sure if I should make it a physical or special attacker, but I went with special, as in its boss fight, it attacks by keeping its distance and sending these strange razor sharp leaps, that's what its journal says at least. Also, stat distribution contrasts quite well with its counterpart, Corellith, as that Pokemon is a slow, bulky physical attacker, while this one is a fast, feral special attacker. And that is all for today. Thanks for watching until the end, and special thanks to all of my members for helping support the channel. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know who was your favourite and be sure to leave a comment letting me know who you would like to see next. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Bye!